Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Om Gam Ganapate Namaha Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Namo Narayanaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Shivaya Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundaya Viche Namo Namaha Om Durge Durge Rakshini Tha Tha Swaha Om Sarvamangala Mangalde Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Trambake Devi Narayani Namostute Shri Hanumate Namaha Om Namo Hanumate Bhayabanjanaya Sukham Kuru Kuru Phat Swaha Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 27th of June 2026. I want to offer prostrations, Anandagodi Namaskaram to all the great sages and to Bhagavan, Paramatma residing everywhere in all places and in the heart of every single being. We are continuing now with a new series that we started yesterday and the recording is on YouTube. I just loaded it just a few minutes back, in fact. So please, if you're listening to this new series from the beginning, then please listen to yesterday's talk, which is the 26th of June, which begins this series. Now, what is this series about? As a quick recap. See, we have talked for many years now about removal of deficiencies, maintaining a balanced life, and all those kinds of things, as well as many different spiritual concepts and ideas. But now we are going to jump into the actual transcendental reality itself. Now, what does that mean? If you remember from yesterday, we were talking about two paths humanity has taken. Just as a quick recap, as a very quick review. There's the external journey and the internal journey. There are two journeys, two exploratory journeys, right? The external journey is through the scientific methodology, what is called the scientific method. It's the experience that comes through our five senses. We have five senses and we can analyze and try to understand the external world. Isn't it so? We have to go very carefully and step by step to set the foundation properly so that we can move today further into the Muladhara Chakra. So today's exposition will probably go for until good 9:15, 9:20 or so. So just hang in there if you can, because this is going to take some time to really properly understand what the Muladhara Chakra is all about. So first of all, the journey externally is the development of the empirical sciences. If you go to any university, you see, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, etc. This is all empirical science. Empirical means known through the senses at the material level. And there's a lot of philosophy behind it also. But for our purposes, we can understand this pretty easily, right? We can understand the fact that you can take a spaceship, rocket ship, and go externally into space. Keep going further. Assuming for a moment we can go light speed, beyond light speed, although we cannot do that really, but just assume for a moment you can go at any speed. Doesn't matter. Go from one galaxy to another, one place to another very quickly. Okay, maybe, who knows, right? But current technology is very limited, obviously. We have discovered galaxies, and we're going to talk about astronomy quite a bit in here. Because whatever has been discovered in astronomy, the galaxies, galaxy clusters, Akasha, or what is space-time causality, Einstein's theories, all of these things are going to come into our discussion. And it's going to connect straight into the Upanishads and into the Gita, into Yoga Vasishta, into many other places. And then from there we will move into Vaikuntha, Goloka, etc. Because that is even beyond all of that. So there are layers upon layers of understanding in this. And this is a very difficult subject. I have not ever gone into this in this much detail, but we're going to do it. And I think it's worth doing it because we've already covered to a large extent a lot of the other foundational ideas. So let's back up for a moment very quickly. Two paths. External path, internal path. In the external path, there's the analysis of the external world. And what do we find? We find the domains of knowledge. Those domains of knowledge and experience are through our senses. Technically, this is called apara vidya in Upanishad. If you're taking notes, write this down because we're going to go sequentially, step by step. So the first point to write down is called apara, A-P-A-R-A. Apara vidya is everything and anything that is coming through our senses. Indriyas, 5 sense organs, right? Now, you take it one step further. When a person begins the internal journey, we are immediately faced by the mind, which is called antakarana in Vedanta. So let's use that word. In Angel Wing, we say T-E-M-D-E, just for a better understanding of it. Thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy. Okay, and we're going to talk about energy quite a bit also in terms of the Muladhara Chakra in just a little while here. So, the internal journey is such that when we deliberately try to see what is inside of us or try to discover who am I by the question, who am I? That is where the meditation techniques come from. They are developed. And so there's 2 paths. This external path, which is going on even now, obviously, through James Webb Space Telescope, because that is the most advanced telescope that can see deep into the galaxy clusters, very, very quite far away. And now many of the theories in astronomy and physics are going to be changed. They have to come up with new ideas, because it's changing a lot of previous assumptions. Always new information is always coming up. So the point is, whatever is known through our senses, we're talking about galaxies. And by the way, the word galaxy cannot be translated into the word Brahmand. That's not the case. Brahmand is much different and beyond any galaxy. Galaxies or planets or clusters, this is all known through our senses. It is only one slice of reality. When we say reality, that means ontological reality. And I know this, I'm trying to go slow with this because this is, I have to use some technical language. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to explain it, but ask me about it if you don't understand it. Ontological means being, what exists. So when we say that whatever exists only at the level of senses, this is one viewpoint. But we cannot see, our senses cannot see everything that exists. That's why we have microscopes and telescopes and electron microscopes and all that to extend the range of our senses. But it is still within the realm of our senses. It is indriya. There's a word in Sanskrit, I have to look it up for that. But the translation is, there's a phrase that says the experiences within the domain of the senses. And then there's another word in Sanskrit called indriyatit, beyond the senses. So these 2 words are there in many stotras and mantras, in so many places it's actually there. So at the domain of the senses, within the domain of the senses, we see this body, first of all. We see this outside world. All that is there. And then we can extend the senses. In summary, we can understand this, right? And you can just keep analyzing. There's like no end to that external analysis. All right. But as soon as a person goes inside with the question, who am I? You're faced with the antakarana. Man, buddhi, chit, ahankar. Again, this was discovered by the rishis. This is called the internal instrument. Karana means instrument or faculty. It's an inner instrument. The 5 senses are bahya karana, external realities. And this is internal reality. Right? So, to understand, to get a glimpse of what is inside, as we said before, mind can be steady, made steady, it can be purified, it can be stilled, it can be harmonized, integrated, all those things we've talked about. I'm not going to repeat that again too much. Assuming that's done, what do we have? That's where the discovery of the chakras comes about. Okay, now let's be clear. Chakra means spinning vortex. But this is mystical. Now we're using a term mystical reality. So there is physical reality, physical body, which is studied through medical sciences, biological sciences. Stula sharira, physical body. Subtle body, the antakarana, which is mind. Study of science, study of psychology, cognitive sciences, all that. Emotion, personality psychology, all those areas are domains that study the mind. And then relationships with people, that's all within the subtle body. There is something called causal body, karana sharira, but it's not a body like this. It is a storehouse of infinite sanskaras that are causing rebirth upon rebirth upon rebirth. The discovery of the rebirth cycle, I'm not going to talk about that right now also. Okay, just assume for a moment that that's discovered, and there's the jivatma that is experiencing birth and death cycle. We'll get back to that again later on. Assume that is there. But once you go beyond the disturbances of the mind, there is the mystical system. Mystical means not empirical, not physical, not within the domain of the senses, that opens up in the depth of meditation. This was how the Sanatana Dharma started. It opens up there. All of the temples we have are actually for this purpose. Nobody knows that these days, but that's what it's all about. There were no temples before. There were caves only. Caves and people sitting in different man-made structures, these ashrams and all that for dhyan, for meditation. And there was only fire, as I mentioned very quickly. Fire, breath, mind. And our internal and discovery of energy. Itna hi tha. Itna hi hai actually. In reality, that's all there is. That's all we have to deal with. And then whatever is coming through our senses, including all the images of the deities and all that. Well, that comes later on, much later on. So this is very interesting. When you are sitting for this type of dhyan, make the assumption, antakarana is purified, balanced, integrated, still, shant, not conflictual at all, internally or externally. There is body-mind balance, 100% balance, not 99%. And in that state, through this experimentation process, the ancient rishis experimented for years and years, generations and generations, and they discovered the balanced state. And from that, they also discovered Shakti, that there is the conservation of energy, which we've talked about in our Angel Wing program. But they've discovered Shakti internally, that there is a reservoir of intense power within us, within our subtle body. And this is where the mystical domain opens. This is called mysticism, in using a Western terminology. Mystical means that which is not within the empirical domain. It's also not just beliefs or ideas. So there's no concept of God even in this yet. God, Bhagavan, kuch dham hai, there's no concept like this at all. There's only nature, there's Agni, fire, there's you, your breath, your mind, your body, and there is the stillness, pavitrata, shant, that has been done through yogic techniques, breathing techniques, because that's all you have to play with, this body and your mind, and they could balance it. And by doing so, this is what happened in ancient times. The mind became absolutely still. Sthir man, we talk about it quite often. But remember one thing, even when the mind is still, you are still alive. This is extremely interesting. This is really where J. Krishnamurti's teachings are all on this point. I don't want to go into that right now, but I'm just making a cross connection, and I have the 800-page analysis of J. Krishnamurti's teachings, which took 10 years to do. If you want that book, I'll send it to you as a PDF. If you have the tenacity to read that, it's really incredible, right? But the point is, when mind is absolutely still, my God, something extraordinary is there. And what happens is that there is internal anubhav. When the mind is not functioning in its usual distorted way, sankalp, vikalp, and all the disturbances and doshas, all that stuff is gone. We're not going to talk about that anymore. That's gone. Completely gone. Not 99%. Completely it is gone. Then you're just sitting in silence. Not even any mantras or anything. Or only silence. And extraordinary things begin to appear. Unknown to the mind. The chakras begin to reveal themselves. You begin to see the internal system. A deeper system than the mind. And that deeper system is called the subtle channels, nadis, N-A-D-I. Yes. These are psycho-energetic structures through which prana, so there's a discovery of the vital force, that there's a living force within us. This is called prana, P-R-A-N-A. And something amazing happens. They begin to hear the sounds that the chakras are emitting. They begin to see the 7 major chakras. There are more than 7 chakras actually. But this discovery is from the Muladhara chakra, and there is the discovery of the nadi system where there are 72,000 nadis. 72,000 nadis are there within us. And the 3 main nadis are Ida, Pingla, Shushmana. You have heard of these. You've heard the names and seen pictures and all that. I'm not talking about pictures and names. We're talking about anubhav. Not ideas. And now we have all these ideas and, videos and teachers about this and techniques. So much things have been developed on that. Kundalini yoga and all that. I don't want to even talk about any of those terms yet. We're talking about the revelation of an internal system that is so amazing that you are still there, but not you as that limited psychological personality. By the way, the limited psychological personality that has been conditioned, and this is why the teachings of J. Krishnamurti are essential to understand these points. Baki ye understand ho hi nahi sakta, because the Upanishad cannot be understood like that unless you understand J. Krishnamurti thoroughly. He's the only one that has thoroughly talked about this. Nobody else has, not to that extent. And it took me 10 years to do the research on this, to understand this point that I'm trying to explain here. That the new reality opens up. It's not at the mind, it's not conditioning, it's not thought patterns, it's not emotional patterns, it's not our personal identity, it's not the physical body, none of that. It's beyond all of that. And this is through this discovery, all the Sanskrit language eventually came out, the terminology came out of all of this, which we'll get into, which we use all the time. But it's all discovery. So what was discovered here? That there is this nadi system. Nadi kya hai? What is this nadi system? Ida, Pingla, Shushmana. They gave these names that the chakras are spinning. But ye chakra kya hai? It is something unknown. It is not like looking into a telescope in, seeing a faraway galaxy, like Hubble, right? Mr. Hubble, James Hubble. He was the one who proved that the Andromeda is not a nebula, but a different galaxy. That's why because he was the first. And so before that proof that came, everybody thought that the Milky Way galaxy is the whole universe. That was the theory before Edwin Hubble, not James Hubble. I guess maybe James is maybe his middle. I don't remember the name exactly, but Hubble is the last name. Amazing, right? So he proved it scientifically through observation that this is a different galaxy. And then when the instruments developed further, they could see many, many more galaxies, and then it went from there. So this is external research, right? New things are appearing externally. Now when you go inside, in dhyan, How to do this dhyan? This is not something any human being today, most human beings cannot do this unless you are extremely enlightened and really at the highest levels of yogic science. There's no chance of this happening. Not in today's world. Simply because our mind is so damaged and so cluttered, there's no chance of any of this thing happening. Very rarely would that even happen. I don't want to go into that right now because I want to move into the spiritual domain. But if assuming that the preparation is there, and just sitting in extraordinary silence, there's no mantra, there's no upasana of anybody, there's no bhakti of anybody, nothing is there except intense silence, deep silence. And that depth of silence is in nature. It's a most fascinating thing. आपको अनुभव करना है इसका? Go into a silent retreat or by yourself, alone, in nature. Do you know who did this? Ralph Waldo? No, I'm saying, who was that? Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. For 2 years, he built a log cabin somewhere in Boston, in Massachusetts, in isolation, only with nature. Because this is from Upanishad. He experimented with this, actually. Henry David Thoreau, and he wrote books while he was doing that. His experiences are there. It's the same thing that the Upanishadic rishis experienced. This intense silence, and by the way, extraordinary respect for all of nature. So the internal fear of nature, damage to nature, division with nature is gone. It has to be 100% gone for this to happen, what I'm going to tell you next. It cannot happen otherwise. There's no way. So this is called Rishi. Mahan Atma hai wo. So they began to see in the depth of their silence, because they have taken a dive inside. They began to see these chakras. But they are still seeing the chakras. And these chakras are spinning. And they have different colors. They call them petals. We use the word petal. 4 pakhrinu kamal, 10 pakhrinu kamal. Kamal means lotus, actually. So that is an analogy that is given. Because we see lotuses in this material world. So the rishis needed something to call these chakras. So they called them kamal. Kamal is a Gujarati word, but in other languages, similar words are there. It means so in English, the word is lotus. It's the same word. But again, it's an analogy. It's a comparison. Because what that actually is, the actual chakra ka jo anubhav hai, there's nothing like that anywhere inside the sansar. You see paintings of chakras and drawings, and people are, meditate this chakra and that chakra ki sadhana karo, and iska koi anubhav nahi hota just by doing that, because the mind is still trapped. That's okay. You can do some of those sadhanas through mantras. We'll talk about that in a moment. But saintliness, purity, harmony, all those things. Without that, wo chakra ka darshan nahi hota. Anyway, let's go carefully. I have to be careful to go very slowly with this, because this is very tricky to explain. It's very interesting. So when a person goes into this, that individual has the courage to go into that. Think about the astronauts who went to the moon, or the people they want to now go to Mars, and they want to do different things, right? To build space stations and whatever. People who go to International Space Station. You have to have some courage. Not some, quite a bit. You don't know if you'll come back alive or not. You don't know what will happen in that. Even any kind of exploration, going to the deep depth of the ocean, going into the space, anything, right? Any kind of unknown area that you're going into, it requires courage. A lot of courage. So to go inside oneself, and you come upon that extraordinary empty space, and you are still alive, there's still life, And there is vast, unending space. कोई अनुभव नहीं है इसमें. And to stay in that, it requires mind-blowing courage. Because your ego, fear will kick inside there. That empty space is called shunyam. It's called shunya. Shunya means nothing. But you are still there. So the rishis, when they came back out of that empty space, they had thought about it. They said, I'm still here, even in the empty space, but there was no anubhav of any kind. But I'm still awake and alive, but not awake as in like normal waking. There's no dream or deep sleep. They went beyond all three. You're awakened out of the dream, deep sleep, and waking state into the Mahashunya. It's called Mahashunya Avastha, technically. Now we know that from Vachanamrut and all. These are very difficult things to discuss or even to explain at any level. But we're going to try. We'll see if we can do it. Mahashunya. Write this down. Mahashunya. But so the rishis, they had groups of people doing this, and those who experienced this, they said, my God, but we have to go beyond. J. Krishnamurti himself went through this exact thing. And he's talked about it in the Ending of Time Dialogues with David Boehm, in the notebook that he's written, in many other places. Because I've been studying his teachings for 20 years or so. Amazing, right? So you come upon this extraordinary emptiness. But in that emptiness, let's back up for a moment. First that emptiness comes, then the chakra system opens up. I should have mentioned that. The chakra system, the vortices, they're called vortices, spinning vortex. The word is chakra, meaning it's spinning. But what is making it spin is spiritual energy. And that is called, the rishis, particularly in the energy upasana sadhanas, the tantra shastras from Kashmiri Shaivism and other places, that is called Kundalini. Yes, it is there, definitely. They realized that there is an immense power that is causing the chakras to spin. And that power is running through this channel that is Sushmana Nadi and the Ida Pingla. These three main nadis are where this energy is going through, and they realized that once all of the deficiencies are gone, those 10 deficiencies we talked about, those are the blockages inside our system. Those are removed. This power begins to flow without obstruction, without any damage, without any blockage. I hope this is clear. If you have questions, ask. This is going to take some time. I wish we had 5-6 hours every day to talk about it. It would take that much time to properly explain this. But we'll get to it. One step at a time, one step at a time. It's better to go slowly rather than to jump fast. Now, we've talked a lot about things like Golok Dham and Vaikuntha Dham, and these all. It just becomes imagination. You have not realized what that is. How to realize actually what that is. We'll get to all that much later on. But this is the background. This is the actual starting point of these chakras. Now, there's a lot to be said about this. As these chakras open, there is awareness of them, seeing them, but in dhyan, internal reality. Now something much more is there. Much more. That as the chakra is open, let's talk about the very base chakra, Muladhara chakra. That name came later on. This reality opens up, and you go into that our consciousness, our overall consciousness goes into the Muladhara chakra. But who is it that is seeing the chakra? It's darn interesting. Even though mind is there, but it is silent. Antakaran is there, it is still, purified. It is not that antakarana that is seeing these chakras. This is the first point to understand. No. Now, if you understand, if we understand it, we'll understand who Ramakrishna Paramans was. We'll understand this very carefully. At least to some extent. That the antakarana is not seeing these chakras. These chakras are seen not through these eyes, not through the internal mental mechanism. They are perceived by, seen by the Atma. And not only are they seen by the Atma or Jivatma, but let's call it Atma for now, the soul, Sat Chit Ananda, our actual self, इसमें जो शक्ति है, the energy that is inside is lighting up the chakras. Bhagwan Swaminarayan has exactly explained this in Vedas. That the Atma, because of its power, its intense power, its intense Shakti, lights up, meaning it's the energy that is the Kundalini, and then the Kundalini that is flowing, that is coming from the Atma. And it is the Atma's Shakti that is lighting up the chakras, spinning the chakras, and giving the Atma the experience of itself as Jivatma. Jivatma meaning the identification with the physical body, subtle body, causal body. That is called Jivatma. That identification and feeling that I am this body, an ant also feels I am this body, a frog feels I am this body, a giraffe feels I am this body, the human being feels I am this body, that sense of aham, jivam, granthi meaning not, that is coming from the power within the Atma, which is actually from Paramatma. That Shakti is coming from there and giving that Jiva, that Atma Chaitanya, which is actually a free Tattva in its original sense, it's giving the experience of limitation because of the causal body. I know it's technical. I told you this is going to be a little bit technical. That's what's happening. That's why a frog feels, I am this body. An ant feels, I am this body. We feel, I am this body. I am this mind. I, me, mine, this, that. Where that comes from? That comes from the Shakti that is in the chakra system. And then that chakra system is running the mental framework of the Antakarana through the causal body, through the within the Sukshma Sharira, in connection to the physical body, in relation to the three avasthas that are generated for the Atma, by the Paramatma, within the Atma, through the causal body. You see how crazy this becomes? This is very difficult to understand. It'll take some time to understand this. And without understanding it, even conceptually, we cannot go even into what was meant by Bhagavad Dham. It'll just become imagination and fantasy. This is really what's happening. This is described in the Shastras. मैं आपको बताऊंगा कहाँ लिखा है ये सब. If you want to see it, it's very extensive. And it's not something, most people in Sanatan Dharma don't know anything about this. You go to any temples, gurus, teachers, they don't talk about all this thing. Only very few people actually have studied all this thing. And can discuss at this level. Even to talk about it at this level is very difficult. Anubhav ki baat to baat alag baat hai. Generally, just things are just ritualistic and going on and doing whatever, the same kinds of things are repeated again and again. It's all okay. That's not even 1% satsang. Jo sab mandiron mein sab chalta hai, it's not even 1%. It's less than 1% of all of this thing. It's okay. It's a beginning, right? You have to have some beginning. This is the reality. That the Jivatma is feeling that I am this body. That is happening through the Shakti that is inside the chakra system. And what is happening is that the Atma, which is lighting up the chakras, itself feels that limitation when it is not limited. It is through, so the chakras, the Kundalini Shakti, the three nadis, and there's much more to this. Much more. But this is what brings about the experience that I am the body, and then the experiences through the body. But it doesn't stop there. This is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. Because when the chakras are, they're not just seen, there is sound in each chakra. And those sounds are transcendental sounds. Yes. They are the light of the chakras, the colors of the chakras. They are metaphysical colors, beautiful. And something very interesting is there. There are mantras in these chakras. So the rishis were given the mantras by God, because when we say God, Bhagwan, that is inside the Atma, beyond the Atma. But the mantras are inside the chakras. All the Veda mantras and all mantras are there inside the chakras. And they are revealed to the Antakarana of the rishis. This is my understanding. If somebody has a different perspective listening to this later on or whenever, I would like to hear from you. Let's get into that discussion. Fine. This is Sachin's research and understanding on this point. Mantra kahan se aaye? We say, oh, Paurusha. But how did they came? Where did they come from? Because they are inside the chakras. And those mantras are given by Paramatma for the Jivatma, for the Atma to experience itself as Jivatma. And that is written in the Gita very clearly, Trigunya Vishaya Veda. It's a bit technical, but it's okay. Slowly. It's very interesting. So for example, the Om mantra. Om, is it something that the rishis just created, as many people in the Western world believe? All these Hindus are just creating some mantras, mind-made. No, it is not like that. It is not like that at all. It is revealed through the chakra system. That the Omkar, the sound, is heard. It is called Shruti. It is heard. That each chakra has its own mantras, and the rishis then can stay with those chakras. It's interesting, even though the mind is there, body is there, but they're beyond that. And when they go into the chakra and it opens, they go inside there. Anant prakar ke mantra aate hai, and the devatas are there, the deities are there, like Muladhara chakra mein jo Ganesh ji ka jo swarup hai, there is a divine form, there are forms of God that are inside these chakras. Rudra ka form, we're going to talk about that, and not to mention all the forms of Devi are there. We've talked about it, I think, some years back during the Navaratri time. I covered each of the goddesses. They're all about the chakras. So this all begins to reveal, but it is so extraordinary. It takes generations to document, to bring about, and the mantras that are revealed are transmitted generation to generation to generation. And those mantras that have been revealed are exactly as they are, without any changes in the four Vedas. There's no change to them at all. None. Like Purusha Suktam, Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. Right? So the different, so that language that came, the Sanskrit language, is a manifestation of the transcendental experience inside the chakras, the mantras that are there. They came out as the Sanskrit language through the 14 bij akshar, am kam cham tam tam pam yam sham vim dum aim vim ham ksham. These 14 akshar have the entire Sanskrit language. It came from there. Amazing, amazing. So each chakra then also has its own mantra. So it's revealed, and then it came to the rishis, that is given to their shishyas. They start chanting the mantra, they do this certain sadhanas, they're able to also experience the same truth. the same reality. But it doesn't stop there. Of course, there are experiences of divine beings. Not only that, these chakras are doorways into different galaxy systems. Yes, that's what they are. The material world that we see has infinite number of planets and galaxies and systems and all that. Whatever is known through science now, that can be seen through the chakra system. Yes, definitely. The moon, the sun, the different planets, the galaxies itself. Not only that, this is just our material plane. The different lokas, the discovery of the 14 lokas. Not imagination. The higher reality called Swarga lokas. What they are, how they were discovered. If you go into a lot of dhyan and Bhagwan ki upasana, from our current position, if we go towards Paramatma, you may see the Swargalok. Yes, it is absolutely perfect. Perfection. It cannot be, aska anubhav kya hai? It cannot be described even. You have to experience that. Swargalok. Swargalok, Maharlok, Janlok, Taplok. These are all lokas that open up in your dhyan. So Jivatma can go into those different lokas. The lower lokas are there. And the names are there. Those names were given later on, and the Srimad Bhagavatam has a description of all of this. And in Vachanamrut summarizes it, Khagol Bhugolnu Vachanamrut also specifically explains this entire cosmology. Extraordinary cosmology. This is just the very beginning. But think of it this way, you are able to sit for dhyan, asankhya brahmand aap dekh sakte. Brahmand, full Brahmand. And you see the different devatas. Devatas are not imaginary, they're beings. The transcendental beings. And they have their own bodies, they have their own life, but they're also having the powers to run the universe. Aishwarya. Think about all this thing. And as this all opens up, so much extraordinary power comes to the rishis. These are called siddhis. Because now they have purview over the material manifestation because of the Veda mantras. That's why in our Hindu temple here, Veda mantra, they want people, the priests who are trained in Veda mantra, because the Veda mantras can change the reality of each person's experience. Each person's life, आपका जो अनुभव है, the experience in the waking state is changed by the Veda mantra. And so it is also realized that the experience of the waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state, everything is created by the Veda mantras. So if it's created by the Veda mantras, it can be changed by the Veda mantras because it's dynamic. Now, how that is changed, how it is applied, is a very interesting question. And so we'll pick that up tomorrow. There's a lot more to say about these chakras in the Nadi system and the different lokas. Bahut kuch hai. This is all Vedic tradition. How this came about, where it came from, and it is Sanatana. It is always there. Right now, we're not talking about avatars or even bhakti even at this point. I mean, there's love, there's affection in terms of respect for all, that kind of thing. But the bhakti comes about at the relative level in the worship of the different devatas, which we will talk about tomorrow. Let's stop here for now. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Aim Brim Klim Chamandai Viche Namo Namaha Om Durge Rakshini Thata Swaha Om Hrim Swaha Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha.